After 6 years, the millionaire cast his gaze upon the 5-year-old boy standing beside his ex-wife, and a wave of shock washed over him. The sleek black Range Rover navigated the serpentine road toward Millbrook, Connecticut, its tinted windows glinting in the warm glow of the late afternoon sun. Anthony Maxwell tightened his grip on the steering wheel, adjusting his sunglasses with a deliberate motion. 15 years crafting a legacy in Chicago. At the age of 35, he found himself compelled to revisit the city he had vowed never to enter again. The GPS declared he was merely 5 miles from his destination. Yet with each meter he covered, memories he had meticulously tucked away in the recesses of his mind resurfaced, pulling at him like a tide. The ancient trees that flanked the road appeared unchanged since his youth, standing as quiet guardians, silently observing his hesitant return. The meeting with the Millbrook Technologies Board has been scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m., Mr. Maxwell. Harrison. The voice of his assistant resonated through the car's Bluetooth system. Thanks, Rachel. Prepare the acquisition documents and ensure the lawyers are present. He responded with a measured tone, his voice reflecting the professionalism that had defined him in recent years. The reality was that the purchase of Millbrook Technologies served merely as a pretext. The true motive behind his return was rooted in the last wishes of his grandmother, Eleanor Maxwell, who passed away a month prior. In her final testament, she had decreed that Anthony must stay in the city for a minimum of 3 months to claim his inheritance, a significant fortune even by her present measures. The city center emerged on the horizon, almost as if it had remained untouched by time. The familiar central square, the white church standing tall with its grand steeple, the old shops boasting their well-maintained facades. Time seemed to freeze, holding on to every memory he wished to leave behind. Anthony pulled up in front of the Millbrook Grand Hotel, the sole place in town that could truly be deemed opulent. Just as he was about to exit the car, his cell phone buzzed with a vibration. A message had arrived from Victoria, his fiancée. Sweetheart, remember our engagement dinner coming up next month. The finalization of the guest list is necessary. He set the phone aside, leaving it unanswered. Victoria embodied all that he had accomplished in Chicago. Polish reputation, professional relationships, an ideal union in theory, yet one that had recently led him to reconsider his decisions. The hotel manager welcomed him with an air of exaggerated respect, clearly aware of the identity of his new guest. Anthony arrived at the presidential suite, where his suitcases awaited his presence. From the window, he enjoyed an exclusive perspective of the city he once cherished as home. He chose to stroll around to absorb the atmosphere of the surroundings. Dressed in a flawless Italian suit that contrasted sharply with the laid-back vibe of the city, he meandered along the main street. A handful of recognizable figures observed him with interest, yet none dared to step forward. His tight-lipped demeanor deterred any effort to bridge the distance. As he walked by the old Miller's ice cream parlor, time seemed to freeze around him. Through the window, he glimpsed Jennifer Lawrence, radiant and striking, reminiscent of his most poignant recollections. Her brown hair cascaded in gentle waves over her shoulders, and her smile, that smile that had lingered in his thoughts during countless solitary nights, remained unchanged. Yet that wasn't the reason his heart raced with excitement. Beside her, grasping her hand, stood a young boy, perhaps 5 years old. A boy possessing the same vibrant green eyes and resolute chin that Anthony encountered each morning in his reflection. Time appeared to stand still. Jennifer lifted her gaze and caught sight of him. The smile vanished from her lips, giving way to a look of disbelief and something deeper, terror. The young lad, unaware of the mounting unease, pulled at his mother's hand, eagerly gesturing towards the array of ice cream flavors. Anthony sensed his legs begin to falter. In a fleeting moment, the barriers he had meticulously constructed throughout the years, the aloofness he had so carefully nurtured, and the grip he had maintained over his emotions all disintegrated. Questions surged through his mind. What had held her back from speaking up? How could she conceal something so significant? In a moment of impulse, she stepped forward, approaching the entrance of the ice cream parlor. With swift determination, Jennifer scooped the boy into her embrace and made her way toward the rear of the store. As Anthony stepped inside, they had already slipped away through the staff door. A youthful staff member came forward, beaming. "How may I assist you, sir?" Anthony gazed at the door that Jennifer had rushed through, his mind swirling with a tempest of emotions long kept at bay. "No," he replied instinctively. "It's not possible." He exited the ice cream parlor as though in a daze, his thoughts looping endlessly around the image of the boy. 6 years after departing from Millbrook, he realized that he hadn't merely escaped a shattered heart. He had forsaken a child he was unaware of. That night, isolated in his opulent suite, Anthony Maxwell, the merciless CEO who had forged an empire from nothing, wept for the first time in years. The 3 months ahead in Millbrook had transformed into something entirely significant, and he realized that his life was poised for irrevocable change. The night stretched endlessly for Anthony. Perched on the balcony of his suite, a glass of whiskey untouched before him, he finally permitted himself to dive into the memories he had long fought to keep at bay. Summer of 2018. The atmosphere was rich with the fragrance of blossoming magnolias as he encountered Jennifer at the municipal library, where she dedicated her skills to restoring ancient texts. He could still envision her vividly. At the pinnacle of the staircase, she poised herself, stretching toward a neglected tome, her hair casually gathered in a relaxed bun. "Are you in need of assistance?" he inquired, and as she pivoted, beaming, a transformation stirred within him for all time. The vibration of his cell phone jolted him back to the here and now. Once more it was Victoria. "Anthony, my dear, that's 2 messages that have gone unanswered. Is everything okay?" He pushed the phone aside, overwhelmed by the weight of his engagement in that instant. How could he convey to Victoria that he had just discovered he was a father? How can one explain that the entire future they envisioned together might unravel? The dawn broke, yet he had not found rest in slumber. At 8:45, he was flawlessly attired for the meeting at Millbrook Technologies, yet his thoughts drifted far from the impending corporate takeover. In the bustling hotel lobby, Mr. Maxwell found himself intercepted by his assistant. "I have the updated documents ready and—" He interrupted sharply, saying to cancel the meeting. "However, sir, the shareholders, please move it to next week." His voice allowed for no disagreement. Without pausing for a response, Anthony sped towards his grandmother's house, now transformed into her estate. The Victorian mansion stood proudly, its grandeur still evident despite a hint of neglect. In the back garden, he encountered Rose, the devoted housekeeper who had been a steadfast presence for his family through the years. "I knew you'd return," the lady remarked, her weathered hands tending to the roses that her grandmother cherished dearly. "Eleanor often remarked that you would eventually return to where you belong." "Rose," he paused. "Could you share some information about Jennifer Lawrence?" The housekeeper's demeanor shifted ever so slightly. "Ah, so you're familiar with young Christopher." The name struck Anthony with the force of a blow. Christopher. He had given his son a name. Why was I left in the dark? Rose set aside her gardening tools, gazing at him with a blend of empathy and disapproval. "Your grandmother made an effort, Anthony. Every one of those calls you left unanswered. She had a message for you." The words crashed over him, each one a relentless surge of guilt. How often had he brushed aside Eleanor's efforts to reach out, firmly believing they were merely ploys to lure him back to the city he despised. "In the initial months, Jennifer made an effort to locate you," Rose went on. "However, you altered all your connections. You vanished entirely." The recollection of those days overwhelmed him once more. The intense confrontation, the biting remarks traded, his hasty exit to Chicago. He severed all connections with Jennifer, blocking her number, changing his email address, and eliminating any potential links. "She was expecting when I departed," he murmured mostly to himself rather than to Rose. "And she was still unaware," the housekeeper added. It was 2 weeks later when she discovered the truth. Eleanor provided support during her entire pregnancy journey. She also embraced the role of grandmother to Christopher. Anthony sank onto the garden bench, his legs buckling under the burden of the revelations. His grandmother, with her profound wisdom, had cared for his son while he was preoccupied with constructing empires. A sound from the fence drew his focus. Christopher stood there, his eyes filled with curiosity as he gazed through the wooden slats. For a fleeting instant, their eyes locked, both adorned in the striking green gown, both brimming with curiosity. "Chris!" Jennifer's voice rang out, filled with alarm, and in an instant, the boy vanished. With a sudden burst of energy, Anthony rose to his feet, yet Rose grasped his arm firmly. "Allow her some time, my boy. One cannot simply intrude upon their existence after a span of 6 years." "But he's my son," she insisted, her voice trembling with emotion. "For 5 years, he belonged solely to her. Jennifer nurtured him on her own, crafted a life, shielding that boy from any hurt his absence could bring. You must demonstrate that you are worthy of a role in their lives." The impact of that truth struck him with undeniable intensity. Once more, his phone buzzed with a vibration. Victoria, likely concerned about his extended quietness. Yet, how could he focus on a wedding in Chicago when his son was so close, just a few houses away, growing up without any knowledge of his existence? "What course of action should I take, Rose?" The housekeeper offered a gentle smile, redirecting her focus to the roses. "Begin by making the correct choice after a long 6-year wait. Remain. Confront what has come before. And most importantly, be ready to stand up for your right to be that boy's father." Anthony found himself in the very spot Christopher had occupied just moments ago, burdened by the gravity of each misstep he had taken. His meticulously crafted existence in Chicago now resembled a precarious tower of cards on the verge of toppling over. And unexpectedly, this possibility didn't intimidate him as much as it perhaps ought to have. After 6 long years, Anthony Maxwell finally understood precisely where he belonged. The following morning arrived, infused with a fresh sense of resolve. Before the sun peeked over the horizon, Anthony rose from his slumber. Clad in running attire, a choice he hadn't made in years, he resolved to stroll through the streets of Millbrook. He required some contemplation, and physical activity had consistently aided him in sharpening his thoughts. He found himself wandering down Maple Street, drawn by an unseen force to Jennifer's home. The quaint, 2-story Victorian home, adorned in a gentle hue of blue, stood still in the quiet of that hour. A bright red children's bicycle rested on the front lawn, accompanied by a few scattered toys, clear evidence of Christopher's presence. Seeking something, Mr. Maxwell, the resonant voice caught him off guard. Daniel Cooper, the ex-police chief and father of Jennifer, stood on his porch, cradling a steaming cup of coffee in his hands. His eyes, which used to radiate warmth, now held a chilling precision. "Daniel, I am Chief Cooper," as the older man interjected. "You forfeited that privilege ages ago," Anthony murmured. During his time with Jennifer, Daniel had taken on a paternal role in his life. The bitterness in his voice was unmistakable. "I must have a conversation with her." "No, you don't," Daniel said as he descended the porch steps. "You should return to your life in Chicago and allow my daughter and grandson to be." "He's my son as well," Daniel chuckled without any real amusement. "Child, a father stands by his family, Maxwell. A father doesn't vanish for 6 years without leaving a mark." "I had no idea," Anthony exclaimed, his voice reverberating through the quiet street. "How am I supposed to know if no one has informed me?" "Lower your voice," Daniel whispered, casting a concerned look toward Jennifer's house. "Join me on this journey." They strolled quietly to the quaint cafe on the corner, freshly opened and inviting. The aroma of warm bread and rich coffee wafted through the atmosphere. "Are you aware of the reason Jennifer could never share that with you?" Once they settled into a distant table, Daniel started to speak. "That final night, your words shattered her completely." Anthony furrowed his brow, searching his mind for the elusive memory. "I have no desire for children. It's something I've always felt. This quaint little town, this serene existence, it all feels stifling to me. I require additional content. I am worthy of greater things." Daniel recited it exactly as it was said. That was your exclamation just before you departed. The memory struck Anthony with the force of a slap. The confrontation had been fierce, stemming from his exasperation over Jennifer's unwillingness to relocate to Chicago alongside him. He muttered, more to himself than to Daniel, filled with anger. Unbeknownst to her, she was carrying a child. Upon discovering the truth 2 weeks later, what words could she possibly use to convey it to you? Your sentiments regarding children and life in a small town have been expressed quite distinctly. Anthony sensed his guilt growing heavier with each passing moment. Yet she might have made an effort. She made an effort. Daniel cut him off. She dialed repeatedly. Emails have been sent. Correspondence. All things returned. You built up so many barriers that you became impossible to reach. The stillness that ensued was overwhelming. From his perch by the cafe window, Anthony observed as the city gradually stirred to life. Christopher, he started with a hint of uncertainty. How is he as a person? A subtle warmth flickered in Daniel's eyes. Radiant, inquisitive. He possesses a sharp intellect and the tender spirit of his mother. He has a deep affection for literature, much like Jennifer. Yet he also possesses a keen interest in the world of business. Last week, he established a lemonade stand and devised a loyalty program for his patrons. Anthony felt a surge of pride that brought a smile to his face. Is that so? Is he inquiring about me? Jennifer mentioned that your father was a businessman who journeyed across the globe. She wished to ensure he never felt alone. She chose to weave a narrative that would shield him from suffering. I must rectify this, Anthony asserted, his tone resolute. I want to be involved in his life. What is the situation with his fiancée in Chicago? Daniel inquired, stunning Anthony. Indeed, information spreads quickly in Millbrook. What role does she play in those plans? Just as he was about to respond, his phone buzzed with a notification. Once more, it was Victoria. Anthony, I've secured a flight to Millbrook. I will be arriving tomorrow. It's essential that we come together to find a solution to this situation. A wave of anxiety gripped his heart. Two realms that were never meant to intersect were on the brink of a fateful encounter. There's quite a bit for you to figure out, Maxwell, Daniel remarked, rising to his feet. However, I must share one insight. If you cause harm to Jennifer or Christopher once more, there will be no corner of this world where you can escape my reach. Anthony lingered in the cafe, long after Daniel's departure, observing as the city awakened around him. From his vantage point at the window, he observed Jennifer and Christopher making their way to school. The young lad leaped joyfully, grasping his mother's hand, sharing words that brought a smile to her face. Her heart tightened. In under a day, Victoria would arrive, carrying with her the intricate web of her life in Chicago. Yet, gazing at his son, Anthony understood that certain decisions had been set in motion, even if he lacked the bravery to acknowledge it. He reached for his phone and, after several days of silence, finally responded to Victoria's message. Stay away. I have something important to share with you, and I want to do it face to face when I return. The response came without delay. What do you mean by that? What's happening? Anthony observed as Jennifer and Christopher rounded the corner before he responded. The truth is, Millbrook's Municipal Library, characterized by its red brick walls and arched windows, stood unchanged, just as Anthony recalled it. After 3 days of quietly watching Jennifer and Christopher's routine, he found that on Wednesdays, she continued to manage the children's reading program, tucked away among the bookshelves. Anthony observed as Jennifer took charge of the session. Her gentle voice filled the room as she shared the story of the little prince, with a circle of children nestled on vibrant cushions. Christopher was one of them, his green eyes glimmering with intrigue as each page was turned. What is the key element of the book? Jennifer inquired of the group. What lies beyond the gaze of the eye? Christopher responded without delay, causing Anthony's heart to race. It is through the heart that clarity emerges. With a proud smile, Jennifer playfully ruffled her son's hair. Precisely, my dear. Once the session concluded, as the other children departed with their parents, Christopher stayed behind, perusing through additional books. With a deep breath, Anthony mustered all his courage and made his way to the children's section. "That's an excellent book," he remarked, gesturing toward the volume Christopher was holding. A tale featuring magnificent dinosaurs. The young lad gazed upwards, a spark of curiosity illuminating his expression. "Are you fond of dinosaurs?" He recalled his own youthful passion, a rush of excitement coursing through him as he spoke. "I loved them when I was your age," Anthony replied, his heart pounding wildly. "The Tyrannosaurus Rex has always captured my imagination." "Mine as well," Christopher exclaimed with enthusiasm. "However, my mom believes the Triceratops was more impressive since it was a plant eater and posed no threat to anyone." At that moment, Jennifer emerged, her eyes growing wide at the sight of Anthony. "Chris, it's time to leave," she urged with a hint of urgency. "But Mom, I was discussing dinosaurs with Christopher just now." Her voice brooked no dissent. The boy rose with a hint of hesitation, placing the book back on the shelf. "Farewell, Mr. Dinosaur," he murmured, giving a timid wave before dashing off to his mother. Jennifer bided her time, observing Christopher as he tended to his things, before making her way over to Anthony. Her voice was a seething whisper. "What do you believe you are up to?" "It's time for a conversation, Jennifer." "Absolutely not. Your claim to that was forfeited long ago." "Please," he implored, lowering his defenses for the first time. "Just 5 minutes, that's all I request." There was something about his vulnerability that seemed to resonate with Jennifer, prompting her to nod after a brief moment of contemplation. "Tomorrow at noon, Chris will be at school, but you can find him at Café Mason." The following morning, Anthony showed up at the cafe 30 minutes ahead of schedule. He requested a black coffee and went over in his mind all the points he needed to express. Victoria had inundated his inbox with anxious messages, yet he remained at a loss for the perfect words to convey the circumstances. Jennifer made her entrance punctually, adorned in a modest floral dress and clutching a folder filled with important documents. She remained quiet, her gaze deliberately averted from his. "I have something you must see," she declared, as she opened the folder and slid a few papers across the table. Christopher's official document of birth. "DNA tests are not essential. Simply observe it." "Then, I do not." "Please, don't refer to me that way," she interrupted. "I simply wish to clarify things. I have no interest in your finances. It's unnecessary for me. I have created a fulfilling life for Chris, and he is content." Anthony scrutinized the documents, his gaze resting on his son's complete name. Christopher Daniel Lawrence. His last name was missing. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked, his voice revealing the hurt within. Jennifer let out a dry laugh. "You expressed a desire for something beyond a simple life in Millbrook, stating that children weren't part of your plans, and then you vanished, cutting off all communication. What options do I have?" Her voice wavered, and Anthony noticed tears beginning to gather in her eyes. Apologies escaped his lips, a depth of feeling beyond words. "Apologizing won't alter what has already happened," Jennifer said, steadying herself once more. "What is it that you seek now, Anthony?" "I wish to understand my son better. I desire to be included in his life." "What's going on with your fiancé in Chicago? What is the name of your company? Is there an ideal existence waiting for you beyond this place?" Anthony paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. "Last night, I ended my relationship with Victoria. During the call, I realized it may not have been the ideal approach, yet." Jennifer gazed at him, her eyes wide with astonishment. "Excuse me? I've come to understand that my priorities have shifted," he continued. "What about the company? I have the ability to operate it from any location. I've begun my search for homes in Millbrook. One cannot simply." "I can and I will," he interrupted, his voice resolute. 5 years of my son's life have slipped away from me. I refuse to let another day slip away." The ensuing silence was palpable. Jennifer fidgeted with her napkin, her mind racing as she absorbed the information. She finally revealed that he inquired about you yesterday, referring to the Lord of the Dinosaurs. He remarked that your eyes resembled his own. Anthony experienced a tightness in his chest. Could you repeat that? Jennifer sighed, noting that sometimes people share similar eyes, but she questioned how much longer she could maintain that observation. He possesses a keen intellect and a sharp eye for detail. Then allow me to be a part of his life, Anthony implored. We can take our time, moving at a rhythm that suits you, but I kindly ask for an opportunity. Jennifer gazed at him with a mix of yearning and contemplation before she responded. He has a baseball game tomorrow after school at 3, if you're interested in joining. Anthony nodded, a wave of optimism washing over him for the first time in days. Though modest in scale, it marked the beginning of something new. As Jennifer stood to depart, he summoned her with one final call. Thank you, Jen and Jennifer. She hesitated briefly, turning away from him. Please, Anthony, don't let me look back on this with regret. I can't bear the thought of you being in pain. As he observed her departure, Anthony silently vowed to himself and to his son. This time he would ensure every detail was perfect. Regardless of the price or the sacrifices involved, Christopher and Jennifer would always come first for him. His phone vibrated, signaling a message from his assistant in Chicago. Board meeting arranged to address your prolonged absence. Your presence is urgently needed. Without a moment's pause, Anthony erased the message. Some decisions, in the end, are simpler than they appear. The baseball field at Millbrook Elementary School thrummed with the vibrant energy of numerous uniformed children and eager parents. Anthony, dressed in jeans and a casual polo shirt, a deliberate shift from his typical Italian suit, stood quietly in the distant bleachers. Christopher, donning the number 7 jersey, engaged in warm-up exercises alongside his teammates. From afar, Anthony noticed the resolve etched on his son's face, the intensity with which he focused on each pitch, reminiscent of his own concentration at that very age. He takes the mound as the starting pitcher. A well-known voice echoed beside him. Jennifer settled into her seat, maintaining a measured distance. Highest strike average recorded in the minor leagues. Her voice brimmed with pride, and Anthony couldn't help but feel a sharp twinge of regret for the accomplishments that had slipped through his fingers. What was the beginning of his journey into playing? He inquired gently. Jennifer paused, contemplating her response. It was, in fact, the brainchild of his grandmother. Eleanor attended every game. She remarked that baseball ran in the Maxwell's blood. Crimson fluid. The thought of her grandmother stirred a new surge of remorse. How many games had she been to instead? How many tales about Christopher had she attempted to convey in the phone calls that went unanswered? The game commenced, and Anthony observed with rapt attention as his son commanded the pitcher's mound with skill. His posture, his concentration, even the way he adjusted his cap, were gestures that appeared to reflect his own childhood memories. Strike! The umpire called for the 3rd time, and Christopher celebrated softly, as if he were trying to hold back his excitement. He always does that, Jennifer remarked, a gentle smile gracing her lips. He expresses that he wishes to spare the other boys from feeling upset. You've done an incredible job with him, Anthony murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Just before Jennifer could respond, a murmur swept across the audience. Victoria Winters, clad in her flawless Chanel outfit and towering heels ill-suited for a baseball field, approached them with unwavering resolve. Is it Anthony Maxwell? Her voice sliced through the air with sharp precision. It's been 3 days since my calls have gone unanswered. A phone call that ended it all, and here you are watching baseball in some remote town. The game came to a near halt. Every eye was drawn to the dramatic scene that was unfolding. Christopher, standing on the pitcher's mound, observed with keen interest. Jennifer rose suddenly. I'm going to get something to drink, she said quietly, clearly uneasy. No. Anthony grasped her wrist with a tender touch. As he faced Victoria, his voice carried a surprising firmness that caught everyone off guard. Even him. It's time for a conversation. However, this is not the place. Not at this moment. Absent from this place. Not at this moment. Victoria let out a laugh filled with disbelief. You end our wedding plans with a phone call and you believe you can... Is that your child? She paused mid-sentence, her gaze locked onto Christopher, who remained observing them from the field. The likeness to Anthony was unmistakable. The ensuing silence was overwhelming. Jennifer moved forward instinctively, as though she aimed to shield Christopher, even from afar. Indeed, Anthony responded succinctly, "He is my son." Victoria swayed as though she had received a sharp blow. "For how long were you aware?" "I discovered it 4 days ago." "So, have you made your choice?" Victoria's voice trembled. "Have you made your selection? This modest existence overshadowing all that we've created?" "It isn't a matter of choice, Victoria." Anthony responded gently. "It's a shift in direction. A task I should have tackled ages ago." Tears cascaded down Victoria's flawlessly adorned visage. "You'll come to wish you hadn't, Anthony. Once the excitement fades away. When you come to understand all that you're discarding." He cut her off. "My sole regret is that it took me an extended period to grasp what truly holds significance." Victoria cast a final glance at Christopher, then shifted her gaze to Jennifer, and ultimately settled on Anthony. In silence, she pivoted sharply and departed, her heels echoing in the charged stillness. The game gradually picked up again, yet Christopher appeared to have misplaced a bit of his focus. His subsequent throw was a ball, an occurrence that was unusual by his standards. He understood, Jennifer murmured, the resemblance, the dispute. "He's quite perceptive, Anthony." In a way that seemed to validate her statement, Christopher cast his gaze upon them between pitches, his green eyes, reminiscent of the Maxwells, brimming with unspoken inquiries. She resolved to convey her thoughts, her voice quivering just a bit. "This evening. I must ensure he doesn't hear it from anyone else." Anthony sensed his heart pounding in his chest. "Would you like me to?" "Negative." She interrupted him. "I'll take care of that. I must be the one to tell him first. Subsequently, we shall see what unfolds." The remainder of the game unfolded in a haze. Christopher managed to rally and lead his team to victory, yet his celebration was subdued, his gaze frequently drifting back to the stands where Anthony remained seated. As the final whistle blew, Jennifer rose from her seat. "I will go and retrieve him. Kindly refrain from attempting." "Not today. He will require some time to reflect on everything." Anthony nodded, his heart caught in a struggle between the urge to rush to his son and the understanding that he must honor Christopher's space. "Jennifer," he called as she turned to leave, "convey to him my pride, my admiration for today's game, for his character, for all that he represents." She hesitated briefly, and Anthony was certain he caught a glimpse of tears in her eyes before she turned and made her way toward their son. That night, in the solitude of his grandmother's mansion, Anthony stumbled upon a photo album that Eleanor had concealed within her desk. Each page revealed snapshots of Christopher's life. His first day at school, birthdays, baseball games, precious moments that his grandmother had cherished, patiently awaiting the day he would be prepared to discover them. "Apologies, Grandma," he whispered into the stillness of the home, "but I assure you I will make things right." The phone buzzed to life, the familiar call from the Chicago office once more. This time, he didn't even take a moment to glance at the message. Certain priorities, after all, stand out unmistakably. The evening following the baseball game stretched on endlessly. Anthony lay awake, conjuring the dialogue between Jennifer and Christopher, picturing their expressions, the inquiries, the potential tears. As dawn broke, his phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer. "He is eager to have a meeting with you. Morning meal at Miller's Diner." Miller's Diner stood as a beloved landmark in Millbrook, the very spot where he and Jennifer would indulge in milkshakes after school. 15 years had passed, and there he was, seated at a Formica table, his hands trembling ever so slightly as he awaited what was to come. The doorbell chimed, and Christopher stepped inside, gripping Jennifer's hand firmly. His eyes, mirroring his father's, held a faint redness, a testament to a restless night. "Good morning," Jennifer said gently, leading Christopher to the table. The boy settled into his seat, his gaze fixed on Anthony, observing him with an unexpected depth for his age. The stillness that ensued was overwhelming. "Is it true that you are my father?" Christopher finally inquired, his tone quiet yet resolute. Anthony gulped. Indeed, I am. What has kept you from visiting me until now? The question struck Anthony with the force of a gut punch. Jennifer's body stiffened beside him, yet she chose to hold her tongue. Due to a significant error on my part, Anthony responded with complete honesty. I wasn't aware of your situation, but that doesn't justify anything. You really missed out on this one. Christopher furrowed his brow, contemplating the details. Grandma Eleanor would occasionally share stories about you. She mentioned that you constructed impressive structures in Chicago. Indeed, that is correct. Anthony wore a wistful smile. Your grandmother? She was an extraordinary woman. She attended every single one of my games, Christopher continued. She remarked that I played exactly as you did at my age. The waitress came over, briefly interrupting the charged atmosphere. Christopher chose pancakes drizzled with chocolate syrup, just like the ones Anthony used to enjoy in his youth. Mom mentioned that you're living in Millbrook now, the boy remarked, fiddling with his napkin. If you wish, Anthony responded gently. I would really like to understand you more, Christopher, and to share in your journey. Chris, the young man corrected. People refer to me as Chris, but when I find myself in a bit of a predicament, my mom opts for my full name. Jennifer chuckled gently. The initial manifestation of tranquility in the early hours. Breakfast unfolded at a leisurely pace, as Christopher interspersed the meal with occasional inquiries about Chicago, baseball, and Anthony's life. It was astonishing how, even after years of separation, they still exhibited so many similar tastes and mannerisms. Just then, Anthony's phone rang, breaking the moment with yet another call from Chicago. This time, it was Bernard Wilson, the esteemed chairman of the board. Apologies, Anthony murmured, brushing off the call. Is this your creation? Christopher inquired with interest. Indeed, though it holds little significance at this moment. Jennifer regarded him with a hint of doubt. Anthony, if you find it necessary. No, he interrupted with conviction. This holds greater significance. At that moment, the phone began to ring repeatedly, over and over. Mr. Maxwell, the waitress came over with a landline phone. An urgent call awaits you from Maxwell Enterprises. Anthony let out a deep sigh, his frustration palpable. Excuse me, he remarked, rising to his feet. In the restaurant corridor, Bernard bypassed any form of small talk. The board will convene in 1 hour. Your absence is causing us to lose the Miller contract. There are countless fortunes on the line, Maxwell. You need to return to Chicago today, or we will begin the process of selecting your successor. Anthony peered through the kitchen door, observing Christopher chuckle at something Jennifer had remarked. His child, his loved ones. Then vote, he said plainly before ending the call. Upon his return to the table, Christopher regarded him with a curious gaze. Your expression suggests concern. It's insignificant. With a gentle smile, Anthony took his seat once more. Hey, what do you think about heading to the baseball field after school today? Let's work on our pitching skills. The boy's expression brightened. May I, mother? Jennifer paused briefly, locking eyes with Anthony. Absolutely, my dear, but just until 6. There is an assignment awaiting your attention. The remainder of breakfast unfolded with greater ease. As the moment arrived for Christopher to head off to school, he caught Anthony off guard with a brief, bashful embrace before dashing out to the car. He's incredible, Anthony whispered, observing them as they drove away. His phone buzzed once more. A communication from the council. Voting has been finalized. Replacement has been authorized. We will reach out to your legal representatives. Anthony set the phone down, a calm smile gracing his features. The enterprise he had dedicated years to constructing. The realm that held such significance. Everything felt trivial in the wake of the embrace he had just experienced. That afternoon, as he guided Christopher through the nuances of flawless pitching, Anthony Maxwell finally grasped the wisdom his grandmother had been imparting to him all those years. Some treasures are beyond monetary value. Dad, Christopher exclaimed, experimenting with the word for the first time. Could you please go over that pitch with me one more time? In that instant, Anthony realized he had chosen wisely. The news of the collapse of the Maxwell empire swept rapidly through Millbrook. The community publication blared the title, "Local Tycoon Loses Command of Billion-Dollar Enterprise," and murmurs trailed Anthony at every turn. Yet, all of that faded into insignificance when I thought about those afternoons spent on the baseball field with Christopher. 2 weeks had gone by since breakfast at Miller's Diner, and a pattern was starting to take shape. Anthony observed Christopher's games, assisted with his math homework, which was his favorite subject, and slowly nurtured a bond with his son. On that particular morning, as he sorted through documents in his grandmother's office, Anthony stumbled upon an old, meticulously sealed box adorned with his name, inscribed in Eleanor's graceful handwriting. "I never thought I'd come across this," Rose remarked from the doorway, balancing a tray of tea. "It was crafted by your grandmother during the final months of her life." With great care, Anthony lifted the lid of the box. Within the confines of the room, he stumbled upon a collection of letters, numerous in quantity, each one bearing his name, yet none had ever been dispatched. The initial one was recorded 6 years prior. "Dear Anthony, today I had the pleasure of meeting your son." Jennifer felt a wave of fear and isolation, yet Christopher stood out as the most remarkable child I have ever encountered. He possesses your gaze, your grin, and that unwavering resolve that you have consistently demonstrated. Just as your grandmother would, I implore you to return home. There is an abundance of knowledge to acquire. Tears welled in her eyes as she pored over letter after letter, each recounting cherished moments of Christopher's life that had slipped away from him. Mr. Maxwell was lost in contemplation when Rachel, his former assistant, broke the silence. "Bernard Wilson has arrived." Anthony stood tall, taken aback. Bernard, the chairman of the board, stepped into the office, his flawless suit standing out against the understated decor. "It's time for a conversation, Anthony." With a quiet grace, Rose slipped away, gently shutting the door as she departed. "If you think you can convince me to return, I'm here to present this to you." Bernard cut him off, slamming a folder down onto the table. "Your grandmother held more than just a stake in Maxwell Enterprises. She held the most significant stake in the company." Anthony grasped the documents, a look of bewilderment crossing his face. "What are you referring to?" "Eleanor Maxwell concealed her shares for years by utilizing a network of shell companies. Upon her passing, those shares were transferred to you. You cannot be removed by the board. You hold the majority stake in the company." The realization hit Anthony with the force of a lightning strike. His grandmother, ever so perceptive, had safeguarded his future even in moments when he overlooked her wisdom. "What prompts you to share this with me at this moment?" Bernard let out a weary sigh as he settled into his seat. "Eleanor extracted a promise from me. She mentioned that eventually you would realize there are matters of greater significance than just business. When that day arrived, I knew it was essential to ensure you didn't lose everything by choosing wisely." In that instant, Jennifer emerged in the doorway, her face ashen and her demeanor restless. "Anthony, we must have a conversation." At this moment, there was an urgency in her voice that compelled Anthony to rise at once. "Bernard, shall we pick this up at a later time?" In the back garden, Jennifer paced restlessly, her distress evident in every step. Christopher stumbled upon a collection of forgotten letters tucked away in the attic. "Correspondence I composed for you throughout your pregnancy." Anthony felt a heavy weight in his chest. What was their response? "The truth," Jennifer replied, her voice quivering with emotion. "I attempted to share the news about the pregnancy with you. I traveled to Chicago in search of you." "What is it, Jennifer?" "I saw you there," she exclaimed, tears cascading down her cheeks. "Alongside Victoria. You appeared utterly joyful, an ideal match in every way. For 4 months, I poured every last bit of my resources into the search for you. And when I finally discovered the truth, you were already committed to her." The recollection struck Anthony with the force of a blow. The celebration on the terrace of the Drake Hotel, 5.5 years past. He had only just encountered Victoria. "Why was that never shared with me?" "Since it appeared you had moved on," Jennifer shouted. I hesitated, fearing I might be the small-town girl disrupting your flawless existence. For the reason that you continued to love me, Anthony said gently. The stillness that ensued was overwhelming. As Christopher perused the letters, Jennifer pressed on, dabbing at her tears. He possesses all the knowledge now. Reflecting on our initial encounter, the blossoming of our affection, the unraveling of our relationship, and the moment I chose to stop sharing details about him with you. Where could he be? On the diamond. He mentioned that he required some time to reflect. Anthony acted without a moment's pause. I will have a conversation with him. Anthony, Jennifer called out to him as he made his way to the car. He discovered this as well. She extended a delicate velvet box. Within lay the engagement ring he had chosen for her 15 years prior. The week leading up to their monumental clash. You held onto it. It's difficult to release certain things, she whispered. In the quiet of the baseball field, Christopher found himself seated alone in the stands. A stack of aged, yellowed cards lay beside him. May I take a seat? Anthony inquired gently. The boy shrugged, yet he shifted to create space. Did you cherish her? After a prolonged silence, Christopher inquired. Above all else, Anthony responded with sincerity. What comes next? Anthony gazed at his son, youthful yet remarkably insightful. Now I realize that certain affections linger on indefinitely. They patiently bide their time, anticipating the perfect moment to return. Christopher grasped one of the letters. Mom expressed that you were her greatest love. She wished that I possessed your smile and your heart. Indeed, you do. Anthony wore a wistful smile. You possess the finest qualities from each of us. Are you departing once more? Absolutely not, Anthony responded with conviction. Not if the fate of every structure in Chicago hinges on it. Christopher nestled closer, allowing his head to rest gently against his father's shoulder. Commitment. I promise, Anthony whispered, embracing his son tightly. Some decisions once taken are eternal. As the sun lingered over the baseball field, father and son shared a quiet moment, the unspoken words between them weaving a narrative of affection, sorrow, and renewal that was poised to embark on its next chapter. The unveiling of the letters transformed everything. The subsequent days unveiled a fresh dynamic among Anthony, Jennifer, and Christopher, as though a shroud of secrets had at last been lifted. On a Saturday morning, Anthony made the choice to embark on the journey of rebuilding. What do you think about having a picnic? During breakfast at Jennifer's house, a weekend ritual they had come to cherish, he made a suggestion. At Lake Monroe, reminiscent of times gone by, Jennifer ceased serving pancakes, her hands trembling ever so slightly. Lake Monroe was their sanctuary, the spot of their inaugural kiss, in the place where they envisioned their future, where he planned to propose to her before everything unraveled. Please, Mom, Christopher pleaded, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Are we able to go fishing as well? Jennifer gazed at Anthony, who wore an expression full of hope. Very well. He ultimately surrendered. However, the two of you will take care of all the preparations. The morning unfolded in a vibrant flurry. Christopher assisted Anthony in crafting the sandwiches, while Jennifer meticulously arranged a basket filled with fruit and beverages. The familiarity of the scene captured the attention of all the adults present. By the lake, Christopher was trying out his new fishing rod, a thoughtful gift from Anthony, while Jennifer settled beside her former boyfriend on the checkered blanket. It brings back memories of that summer, she remarked gently, prior to all else. Before I messed it all up, Anthony included. We each erred in our own ways. Jennifer let out a weary breath. I ought to have put up a stronger fight. I ought to have pressed the point about Chris. Anthony retrieved an item from his pocket. The petite velvet box that Jennifer had revealed to him just a few days prior. Were you aware that I intended to propose in this very spot? The final week leading up to our confrontation. Jennifer paused, her breath caught in her throat. Anthony. Negative. He interjected softly. This is something I must express. Everything was meticulously arranged. The fading light of day. The blossoms. I managed to persuade old Pete to strum our song on the guitar. However, that proposal from Chicago arrived. And I have wandered off course. Father, Father, Christopher exclaimed with enthusiasm. I have won. The two adults observed the boy as he grappled with his initial catch. His expression blended focus and delight, evoking memories of Anthony in his younger days. He is truly remarkable, Anthony whispered under his breath. How could I have squandered so many precious moments? We have arrived. Jennifer responded gently. That is what truly holds significance. The day unfolded like a vivid dream. Christopher moved back and forth between casting lines with Anthony and settling onto the blanket for a bite to eat, sharing tales and inquiring about his parents' youthful days. So, this is where you crossed paths? He inquired, taking a bite of his sandwich. Your mother sat beneath the oak tree, engrossed in the Little Prince. Anthony gestured towards a venerable tree standing by the lake's edge. I aimed to showcase my fishing prowess, but instead, I found myself taking an unexpected plunge into the water. Jennifer chuckled at the recollection. He appeared completely drenched yet still made an effort to exude charm. Was it successful? Christopher inquired with interest. Approximately. Jennifer beamed. At least I have a date for some hot chocolate. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow of orange and pink across the sky, Christopher drifted off to sleep on the blanket, weary from a day filled with adventures. He appeared utterly serene, Jennifer remarked, gently brushing a strand of her son's hair aside. Anthony inhaled deeply, summoning his resolve. Jen, I understand that it might feel premature, and there's much to restore. As he lifted the lid of the velvet box, the ring was unveiled, glimmering with promise. I'm not requesting anything at this moment. I want you to understand that my love for you has never wavered. And if one day, Anthony, Jennifer interjected, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, there exists a profound connection between us, filled with a rich tapestry of history, deep-seated pain, and an abundance of love, he added. Observe him, Jen. Observe our family. Could we possibly have this opportunity once more? Just as Jennifer was about to respond, Christopher shifted in his slumber, murmuring something about flying fish. Their laughter mingled gently, the weight of the moment lifted by the pure innocence of their son. One day at a time, Jennifer finally responded, her hand gently resting on Anthony's atop the blanket. Let's reconstruct this properly, for the sake of our family. Anthony nodded, tucking the ring away while their fingers remained intertwined. The sun dipped lower in the sky above Lake Monroe, a quiet observer of yet another unfolding chapter in their tale. As they made their way home, Christopher stirred momentarily in the back seat of the car. It was the most incredible day, he murmured drowsily. Jennifer and Anthony shared a look in the rearview mirror, a wordless connection flowing between them. Some bridges, after being rebuilt, emerge even more resilient than they were before. That evening, after parting ways with Jennifer and Christopher at their home, Anthony made his way to his grandmother's grand mansion. In the study, he discovered yet another letter from Eleanor, as though she possessed an uncanny foresight of what was about to unfold. Dear Anthony, genuine affection requires time and understanding. It lingers, absolves, and reconstructs. As you take in these words, I trust you will grasp that certain treasures transcend monetary value, and that the most meaningful investments are those we nurture together as a family. With all my love, Grandma Eleanor. Anthony drifted into slumber, the letter resting gently on his chest, his dreams filled with visions of future picnics, baseball games, and a family that felt whole at last. As autumn settled over Millbrook, it ushered in a vibrant tapestry of hues and transformation. The trees on the Maxwell estate shimmered in hues of crimson and amber. Within the confines of the mansion, Anthony confronted his own metamorphosis. In the quiet of his grandmother's study, he pored over the latest proposal from the board of Maxwell Enterprises, an enticing offer to purchase his shares for an extraordinary amount, contingent upon his total surrender of control over the company. During the video chat, Bernard clarified that the documents only require your signature. That's quite a generous proposal, Anthony. A fortune beyond what one could exhaust in numerous lifetimes. Anthony turned his chair towards the window, observing Christopher frolic in the garden with his new dog, a golden retriever that Jennifer had ultimately permitted after weeks of shared persuasion from both father and son. "What if I choose not to sell?" he inquired, his thoughts already crafting an alternative strategy. Bernard let out a weary breath. "Then you must seize the presidency with determination. The board has decided that an absent CEO is no longer acceptable. What if I could operate it from Millbrook, a company comparable to Maxwell Enterprises, based in a small town?" Bernard chuckled without any trace of amusement. "The council would never approve it. The board is left with no alternative," Anthony stated with conviction. "Don't forget, I'm the one holding the majority of the shares." In that instant, Jennifer emerged in the office doorway, holding an aged box. Her complexion was ashen. "Bernard, I'll return your call shortly." Anthony swiftly concluded the video conference. "Jennifer, could you share what occurred?" She placed the box on the table, yet another of Eleanor's cherished belongings. "This discovery was made in the attic. You should definitely take a look at it." Within the confines of the box lay aged documents, faded photographs, and a personal diary. The images depicted Anthony's father, Richard Maxwell, in his youth, standing alongside a man Anthony identified as Jennifer's father. "Our parents were partners," Jennifer revealed, her voice quivering just a bit. "Prior to the tragic event, before your father's passing, they were collaborating on a project. Maxwell Enterprises had its beginnings outside of Chicago. Anthony, this is where it all began, in Millbrook." As Anthony turned the pages of his father's diary, he unearthed a narrative that was entirely unfamiliar to him. Maxwell Enterprises emerged as a modest construction venture, established by Richard Maxwell and Daniel Lawrence Sr. After Richard's tragic car accident, Jennifer's father had no choice but to sell his share for a mere fraction of its worth to settle medical debts. "My goodness," Anthony murmured, "the puzzle is coming together. That's the reason your family held such strong resentment towards us. That's the reason that's the reason my father never accepted our relationship," Jennifer added. "He was convinced that the Maxwells had taken away our family's destiny." In that instant, Christopher burst into the office, his dog trailing closely behind him. "Hey Dad, Mom, check out what Max can do now." The two adults observed as the boy beamed with pride, showcasing the trick he had taught the dog to paw, their concerns momentarily set aside in the glow of their son's happiness. Once Christopher departed, Anthony resolved to take action. He proclaimed his intention to resolve this matter. "Anthony, there's really no need for that. Indeed, it is," he interjected softly. "Not solely for what has been, but for what lies ahead, for our tomorrow." In the coming weeks, Anthony dedicated himself wholeheartedly to crafting a fresh strategy for Maxwell Enterprises. He converted his grandmother's office into a bustling operations hub, outfitting it with cutting-edge technology that facilitated video conferences with global offices. However, the true highlight of his career was the proposal he submitted to the board, envisioning the establishment of a cutting-edge technology center in Millbrook, destined to become the company's new headquarters. "Returning to our origins," he elaborated during the presentation. Yet, looking ahead, the most crucial aspect of the project was unveiled during a dinner at the Lawrence residence. Anthony declared to Jennifer and her father that he wishes to extend an equal partnership in the company, not as an act of charity or compensation, but as acknowledgement of what it has always deserved to be. Old Daniel Lawrence Sr. gazed wistfully at the man he had once held in contempt. "What is the reason behind this?" "Some debts must be settled," Anthony responded. "And because I wish for my son to understand that we made the right choices." Christopher, engaged in play with Max in the yard, remained blissfully unaware of the significant transformations unfolding within the house. Yet, when his grandfather Lawrence embraced him later that evening, tears glistening in the elder's eyes, he felt a profound shift had occurred. Later that evening, once Christopher was tucked in for the night, Jennifer discovered Anthony on the balcony. "You didn't have to do that," she murmured gently. "Indeed, I did," he responded, drawing her nearer. "For our loved ones, for our kin." The engagement ring lay quietly in his desk drawer, patiently awaiting the perfect moment to shine. Yet, beneath the vast expanse of Millbrook's night sky, with the gentle rhythm of his son's breath drifting in through the open window, Anthony Maxwell came to grasp the profound essence of legacy. It transcended mere corporate empires or bank accounts. It was about making the right choice, even if it came after the opportune moment. It was about creating something that his son would one day take pride in. $1 for your thoughts, Jennifer whispered, leaning her head gently against his shoulder. With a smile, he mused, some fortunes are crafted from love rather than wealth. For the first time in ages, the burden of the Maxwell legacy felt lighter to bear. Winter descended upon Millbrook with an unanticipated intensity. A snowstorm loomed over the town, bringing with it unforeseen winds of change that caught everyone off guard. In the midst of a pivotal video conference regarding the company's transition, Anthony felt his phone vibrate with an urgent message from Jennifer. Chris is experiencing a significant fever. Medical facility. Hurry up. He concluded the meeting abruptly and dashed to his car, paying no mind to the snowflakes that started to drift down. At the hospital, he discovered Jennifer in the emergency room, her expression etched with worry. Pneumonia, she articulated, her voice trembling. He was frolicking in the snow yesterday when Mr. and Mrs. Maxwell, a nurse, called out, causing Jennifer to blush and Anthony to feel a tightness in his chest at the title that wasn't yet official. Lawrence, Jennifer gently corrected. I am Mrs. Lawrence. The physician conveyed that Christopher would require admission to the hospital. The pneumonia was critical, requiring intensive medical attention. As they observed their son in slumber, surrounded by monitors and oxygen tubes, Anthony was engulfed by an unprecedented fear. He'll be all right, Jennifer whispered, almost as if reassuring her own thoughts more than him. He must be. The tempest intensified as the night wore on, cutting Millbrook off from the outside world. The hospital operated on generators, while the roads lay in a state of disrepair, utterly impassable. At that moment, the doctor delivered even more concerning news. Christopher mentioned that he requires a particular medication, but due to the storm, our supply is dwindling. Where might we discover additional information? Anthony inquired right away. The main hospital in Hartford has it, but under these conditions, I'll go, Anthony stated, already grabbing his keys. Anthony, no, Jennifer said, clutching his arm tightly. Driving in the storm is a reckless decision. He's our son, he stated plainly. The glance they shared conveyed everything. Years of pain and bitterness melted away in that instant, giving way to something more profound, more essential. Then I shall accompany you, Jennifer resolved. No, Anthony caressed her cheek softly. Chris requires your presence here. I assure you I will return. Before departing, Anthony paused at his son's room. Christopher lay in a restless slumber. His breaths labored despite the assistance of oxygen. Father, he spoke in a low, drowsy tone, his green eyes dimmed by the heat of illness. I'm right here, champ. Anthony grasped his tiny hand. I will retrieve your medication, all right? Stay resilient. With a subtle smile, Christopher inquired, reminiscent of a Maxwell. Like a Maxwell Lawrence, Anthony gently corrected, pressing a kiss to his warm forehead. The journey to Hartford was a complete ordeal. The snow enveloped the world in a thick white blanket, reducing visibility to nearly nothing. Time and again, Anthony felt the car teeter on the edge of control, yet the thought of his ailing son propelled him forward. At the Hartford hospital, after what felt like an endless wait, Anthony finally received the medicine. The journey back, however, turned out to be even more difficult. A toppled tree obstructed the primary thoroughfare. With no other option, he found himself navigating the winding old mountain road, the very path where his father had met with tragedy all those years ago. That was the moment it all changed. Out of the blue, a deer appeared, prompting Anthony to make a sudden swerve. The vehicle lost traction on the icy surface, whirling perilously near the edge of the cliff. In a dreadful instant, he feared that the past would echo once more, yet something, maybe the essence of his father or the profound bond with his son, urged him to maintain his composure. The vehicle came to a halt mere inches from the precipice. By the time he reached Millbrook Hospital, several hours had slipped away. Jennifer stood in the lobby, her face a mask of frozen tears. "Thank goodness," she murmured, embracing him closely. I believed I had lost you as well." "Never again," Anthony vowed, as he passed the medicine to the doctors. The hours stretched on in a torturous anticipation. Yet slowly Christopher started to show signs of responding to the treatment. His fever subsided and his breathing became more stable. The following morning, as the sun finally pierced the clouds, Anthony observed his son sleeping soundly, with Jennifer dozing in the chair beside him. In that moment, he came to a profound understanding. That night, he confronted the deepest dread he had ever known. The storm wasn't the culprit, nor was it the road that led to his father's absence. It was the dread of experiencing the loss of his family once more. He retrieved the engagement ring from his pocket. He had been holding on to it ever since that day by the lake. This moment was marked by certainty, devoid of any second thoughts. As Jennifer stirred from her slumber, her gaze fell upon the ring adorning her finger, while Anthony knelt beside her, a picture of devotion. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his tone straightforward. "Not out of obligation, not out of necessity, but because I choose to weather every storm of my life with you by my side." At that moment, Christopher opened his eyes, a faint smile gracing his lips as he took in the scene before him. Finally, he whispered, bringing laughter to his parents even as tears streamed down their faces. The storm had moved on, leaving in its wake a town blanketed in snow and a family that emerged stronger, more united than ever before. "Indeed," Jennifer at last responded, pressing her lips to Anthony's while Christopher offered a soft round of applause. "Absolutely, without a doubt." Spring graced Millbrook, ushering in not just the blooming of flowers, but a tide of transformation. Maxwell Lawrence Technologies, now the name of the company, was embarking on the construction of its new headquarters in the heart of the town, turning a neglected site into a beacon of revitalization. Jennifer and Anthony had chosen a modest wedding in June at Lake Monroe, yet prior to that, there was an even more significant ceremony to undertake. "Do you really want to go through with this?" Jennifer inquired, while she deftly adjusted Christopher's tie. In the county courthouse, they sat in anticipation, awaiting the adoption hearing. Following months of legal battles, Anthony was finally able to formalize what his heart had long understood. Christopher was his offspring. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life," Anthony replied, his gaze fixed on Christopher as he meticulously practiced his signature on a blank sheet of paper. The young lad was adamant about inscribing his complete name, Christopher Daniel Maxwell Lawrence. Judge Thompson, a silver-haired woman who had been acquainted with Jennifer since her youth, presided over the ceremony with a gentle smile. She called out to the boy, "Christopher, are you aware of the significance of this adoption?" "It signifies that I now have a father," Christopher responded with a gravity that belied his age. "Yet, in truth, he was my father many years past." The clarity and richness of the response resonated with everyone present. Anthony grasped Jennifer's hand, his fingers brushing against the engagement ring adorning her finger. Following the ceremony, they headed over to Miller's Diner to celebrate. As Christopher relished his chocolate milkshake, he posed a question that caught everyone off guard. "Is it possible for me to have a baby brother now?" Jennifer sputtered on her coffee, as Anthony struggled to suppress a grin. "One step at a time, champ," he said, sharing a significant look with his fiancée. Later that day, as Christopher displayed his new documents to Grandpa Lawrence, Anthony led Jennifer out for a stroll. They paused before a Victorian house on Maple Street, the very one Jennifer had always cherished during their teenage years. "I'd love to hear your thoughts." He extended his hand, offering her a set of keys. Jennifer glanced from the house to the keys, her eyes growing wide with surprise. "Anthony, you didn't... I believed we required a space just for us," he clarified. "A space for our family to flourish." The glistening tears in Jennifer's eyes conveyed emotions that words failed to capture. "And there's one more thing," Anthony said, leading her toward the backyard. A treehouse stood there, its structure only half-formed. Chris and I began constructing it over the weekend, he elaborated. He mentioned that every family's yard requires one. Jennifer examined the intricacies of the project. The tiny windows, the climbing rope, the ideal setting for youthful escapades. You're creating something far beyond a mere treehouse, she remarked gently. You're creating lasting moments. We are, Anthony amended, embracing her from behind. We are collaboratively creating everything at this moment. The joyous sound of laughter broke the stillness of the moment. Christopher dashed down the street, with his grandfather Lawrence trailing behind, clutching the building plans. Dad, Grandpa has come up with an incredible idea for the treehouse, Christopher said with enthusiasm. A pulley system can be constructed to elevate objects with ease. Daniel Lawrence Sr., who had slowly embraced Anthony as a member of the family, extended the drawings. I thought we could collaborate on this, he suggested. Ultimately, creating things has long been a cherished custom in our families. Anthony sensed the gravity of those words. It transcended the mere concept of a treehouse. It was a journey towards mending past scars, connecting the echoes of history with the promise of tomorrow. It would be a privilege, he responded, reaching out his hand to his prospective father-in-law. As the men delved into the intricacies of the project, Jennifer observed the unfolding scene with a heart brimming with emotion. Christopher, perched on the improvised swing that Anthony had crafted, was sketching out his own designs for the treehouse. Mom, he asked, can we paint it blue? It's his favorite color. Absolutely, my dear, Jennifer responded, astonished by how effortlessly her son had adapted to all the transformations. After a family dinner in the new house, Christopher drifted off to sleep on the unpacked sofa, worn out from envisioning enhancements for his future treehouse. He appeared utterly joyful, Jennifer remarked, as she draped a blanket over him. We all are, Anthony said, wrapping her in his embrace. After years of constructing towering skyscrapers in Chicago, I find a deeper sense of fulfillment today, crafting a simple treehouse with our son. Jennifer smiled, fully grasping the sentiment, for sometimes the most significant foundations are not composed of concrete and steel, but rather of love, forgiveness, and second chances. In that Victorian house on Maple Street, with her son resting soundly and her future husband beside her, Jennifer felt a profound sense of belonging, realizing they had at last discovered their true home. The wedding morning arrived beautifully in Millbrook. The surface of Lake Monroe mirrored the azure sky of June, while a soft breeze danced through the wildflowers adorning the ceremony site. At the Maxwell Mansion, where Jennifer was preparing, the ambience was filled with a delightful sense of anticipation. Rose, the housekeeper, was attending to the final touches of the dress, a vintage piece that had once belonged to Jennifer's mother. With a gentle smile, Rose adjusted the veil, embracing the charm of something old. Your mother would undoubtedly feel immense pride. Christopher hurried into the room, fully attired in his pageboy suit, clutching a small blue box. With a sense of pride, he declared, presenting his mother with a delicate bracelet in a lovely shade of blue. My father and I selected it as a team. Jennifer embraced her son, being mindful not to crease his dress. You look absolutely stunning, my dear, like a true Maxwell Lawrence, he said with a grin, causing everyone to burst into laughter. By the lake, Anthony stood anxiously beneath the venerable oak tree where everything first unfolded. The venue had been turned into a whimsical dreamscape, adorned with lanterns suspended from the branches and trails lined with delicate white petals. Bernard Wilson, a dear companion now, was meticulously adjusting his tie. Feeling anxious? For the first time in my life, Anthony confessed, I find myself precisely where I belong. As the music filled the air, it wasn't the usual wedding march that resonated, but rather the enchanting notes of La Vie en Rose strummed on the guitar by Old Pete, just as Anthony had envisioned long ago during his first, unfulfilled marriage proposal. Christopher arrived first, bearing the rings with a hilariously solemn demeanor. As Jennifer made her entrance, everyone rose to their feet, guided by her father. Anthony sensed a sudden stillness in his chest. Jennifer was captivating, yet it was more than her outward charm that excited him. It embodied all that she stood for. Her first love, the father of her child, her opportunity for redemption. As Daniel Sr. placed his daughter's hand in Anthony's, emotion welled up in his eyes, glistening with tears. "Handle my precious with care," he whispered. "With my existence," Anthony vowed. The ceremony was led by Judge Thompson, who had overseen Christopher's adoption. In a moment filled with emotion, she invited the boy to be with his parents. "Today we honor not merely the joining of two individuals," the judge proclaimed, but the formal recognition of a family that love had already created. Christopher grasped his parents' hands tightly as they promised their love to one another. "Jennifer," Anthony started, his voice trembling, "I dedicated years to constructing an empire, unaware that my genuine treasure lay right here. You bestowed upon me the most precious treasure imaginable, our son, and now you're offering me an opportunity to set things right once more. I vow to dedicate my entire existence to being worthy of this love." Jennifer brushed a tear aside before she started her vows. "Anthony, it's often said that we cannot change what has already happened, yet we hold the power to shape the next chapters of our narrative. I select you, now and forever, to craft each new chapter side by side." As the moment for the rings arrived, Christopher showcased them with a radiant smile. With a fresh twist, he declared, eliciting another round of laughter from the crowd. Following the vows, the celebration flowed into the afternoon within the enchanting garden of the Maxwell Mansion. Daniel Sr. captivated the audience with a heartfelt address. "Years ago, when Eleanor Maxwell approached me with her thoughts on intertwined destinies and second chances, I must admit I was skeptical, yet she proved to be correct. Certain narratives require patience to uncover their authentic conclusion." As the bride and groom shared their first dance to the enchanting melody of La Vie en Rose, Christopher gracefully stepped onto the dance floor, transforming the waltz into a warm embrace of family unity. "Look!" someone exclaimed, gesturing towards the sky. A double rainbow arched gracefully over the lake, a stunning emblem of nature's favor for the moment. Christopher hugged his parents and recalled Grandma Eleanor's words about double rainbows being a sign of promises kept. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jennifer spotted Anthony on the weathered garden swing, observing Christopher as he played with the other kids. $1 for your thoughts," she said with a smile as she settled into the seat beside him. "Life is so funny," he said, drawing her in closer. "At times, it takes losing everything to discover what truly holds significance." "And what truly holds significance?" she inquired, despite already being aware of the response. "This," he replied with a quiet assurance, gesturing to Christopher, to her, to the warmth of their reunited family. "It has consistently been that way." As darkness enveloped Millbrook, the lanterns in the garden cast an enchanting glow, transforming the scene into something truly whimsical. Christopher drifted off in Grandpa Lawrence's embrace, weary yet content. Once more, Jennifer and Anthony found themselves twirling beneath the shimmering stars. Now united as partners, she leaned in close and softly murmured, "I have something to share with you." "What?" he inquired, observing the unique glimmer in her gaze. "It appears that Christopher's desire for a little brother is set to be realized sooner than we anticipated." Anthony ceased his movements, his gaze expanding in surprise. Jennifer nodded, a smile breaking through her tears of joy. Under the vast, starry sky of Millbrook, with his son resting peacefully and his wife embracing a new chapter, Anthony Maxwell came to grasp the genuine essence of success. It wasn't the towering structures in Chicago or the wealth amassed in bank accounts. It was the affection that crafted his family's narrative, layer by layer. If faced with the choice between achieving your dream career in a bustling metropolis or embracing a more straightforward existence surrounded by loved ones in your hometown, which direction would you take and what motivates your decision? Your involvement is crucial to the channel's success. Share your genuine thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for tuning in. If you found the story engaging, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights and encouragement are incredibly valuable to us. Keep an eye out for more thrilling tales ahead.